Today's lesson is on probability and chance events. This is going to be a review of the unit that we did earlier in the fall. Have you ever heard of a weather forecaster say there's a 40% chance of rain tomorrow? Or football referee tell a team there's a 50-50 chance of getting heads on a coin toss to determine which team starts the game? These are called probability statements. In this lesson, you're going to investigate probability and how likely it is that some events will occur. So let's look at our probability scale. When we talk about probability, if there's 0 chance it's going to happen, that's impossible. If it's certain it's going to happen, then we give that a value of 1. And all the probabilities in between are between 0 and 1. So there's unlikely, that means less than half. Equally likely to occur or not to occur means it could go either way. 50-50 is another way to say it. And likely would be an event that's greater than 1/2. You may have noticed there's 3 different ways we can express probability. So let's start in the middle with the fraction 1/2. So if it was impossible for this event to occur, since this denominator is 2, I'm going to go ahead and put 0 out of 2. It's impossible that whatever event we're speaking about will occur. If it's certain, that would be 2 out of 2 if we're using 2 as our denominator. Next, if we chose to express this as a decimal, well, we would just keep this 0. And 1/2 written as a decimal would be 0 and 5/10. And then 1, or if it was certain, it would be 1. Finally, if we had chose to express this as a percent, we would put 0%. 1/2 would be 50%. And certain would be 100% chance that this would occur. So as you look at this, you can see there'll be in-between numbers. Our percent would be somewhere, if it's unlikely, between 0 and 50%. Likely would be above 50%, but not quite 100. Now we're going to decide where each of the following events would be located on the scale above. Our experiment is numbers from 1 to 10 are written on small pieces of paper and placed in a bag. One piece of paper will be drawn from the bag and replaced after each draw. We're going to decide whether each event, which is what we're looking to happen, is impossible, unlikely, equally likely, likely, or certain. Those are our 5 choices. We're going to write our answer next to each event. So our first event is a piece of paper with a 5 is drawn from the bag. And let's recall, we have the numbers 1 through 10 written and put in the bag. So how many 5s would be in that bag? Well, we would have 1 5 out of 10 pieces of paper. So this event would be unlikely. Our next situation is a piece of paper. And remember, we're putting the papers back in after we draw. A piece of paper with an even number is drawn. So how many even numbers would there be in the bag? If you said 5, that's correct. So there's 5 even numbers out of 10. So would that be impossible, unlikely, equally likely, likely, or certain? If you said equally likely, you're correct. Our next situation is a piece of paper with a 12 is drawn. Is that impossible, unlikely, equally likely, or certain? Well, just the numbers 1 through 10 are written on a small piece of paper. So we wouldn't be able to draw a 12. There's 0 12s inside that bag, just 1 through 10. So this would be impossible. Would you please pause the video and answer the next two questions on your own? A piece of paper with a number other than 1, well, there's 9 other numbers that are not 1 out of 10, so that's likely. It's greater than 50%, but less than 100%. And a number that's divisible by 5, well, 5 and the number 10 are divisible by 5, so that's 2 numbers out of 10, so it's unlikely. Let's move on, please. Okay, as I'm looking at this page, I can see there's some formatting issues, so would you go ahead and cross out these numbers and renumber for me? This is obviously problem number 2. This is number 3. Same thing, unfortunately, happened down at the bottom. So this should be 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so we're going to do 1, 3, and 5 together. So based on these spinners, we're going to try to answer the questions that are given. Which letter is the spinner most likely to land on? So let's investigate. I see 1A, 1B, there are 3 C's, and 1 D. So the letter that's most likely, and so let's underline that, to land on would be C. There's 3 out of 6. Let's move on to number 3. Which 2 letters is a spinner equally likely to land on? So let's go ahead and underline equally likely to land on. And let's investigate. We have 1, 2, 3 A's, 1, 2 B's, I see 1 C and 1 D. So because C and D both have 1, while B has 2 and A has 3 A's, the equally likely would be C and D. Finally, let's move on to number 5. Number 5 says, which letter is the spinner least likely to land on? So let's underline least likely. And this spinner looks like it might have more sections, so let's be sure that we know how many sections we're dealing with. So I'm going to start with the one with the arrow and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 sections. So as I work with this, I want to make sure that I know all of the different sections I'm working with. So I'm going to start with the letter A. I see 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 4 A's, and I'm going to go ahead and tally this for myself so I understand. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Next, I'm going to look for the B's. I see 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 B's. Next, I'm going to move on to C. And it looks like there's 1, 2, 3 C's. So 1, 2, 3 tallies. And finally, let's talk about letter D. So we're going to count the D's. 1, 2, and I just see 2 D's. So before we answer the question, I just want to confirm that we've accounted for all 13 sections. We have 4 plus 4 is 8, plus 2 more is 10, plus 3 is 13, and we counted 13 sections. So now I'm confident that D is the least likely. So what I'd like you to do is complete the even numbers and then turn that in. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.